this is Daren Blonski with Sonoma Wealth Advisors. Joining me, I've got Chelsie Runnings with Better Home and Gardens and Mary Piasta with Haeuser, Valluzzo, and Piasta here in beautiful Sonoma. So here we are. This is the Sonoma Brain Trust, a group of professionals that have band together to talk about what's happening and how these changing environments are impacting all of our businesses and lives. We have a special guest with us today, Mary Wright. So we've got our Mary Piasta and we've got our Mary Wright today to talk really about what do we do and how do we open up and where are we? There's so much confusion out there. Like, do I open my office? Do I not open my office? Will I get in trouble if I open my office? What do I have to do for my employees if I do open my office? So that's what we hope to help clarify here in the next few minutes. We'll try to keep it short to about 15 minutes. And I'm going to turn over to Mary Piasta to take us through.
Hi, everyone. I am just so delighted that today Mary Wright has agreed to be part of our program. Mary Wright is a seasoned litigator. She has demonstrated success representing businesses over the last 31 years. Her practice is based out of Napa, but she serves well beyond that. She is a solutions strategist and is able to creatively resolve things for businesses. So, Mary, I would love to hear your thoughts about what's going on in today's workplaces here and what you would think are some of the best practices that you recommend for businesses in light of facing what they are right now.
You know, there are probably, it seems to the businessman or the business person that there are as many solutions or answers as there are talkers who are going to be talking about this subject. And I really recommend that business owners first and foremost go to the county pages. Read the public order, read Governor Newsom's executive order, and then read their specific county's order. And between the two of them, they will get abundance of advice and counsel about what words are being used in trying to describe the protocols for pandemic. And once you read that, there are lots of instructions in there. Once you read that, it will refer you to the public health orders, and then it gets more and more detailed as the more you refer to it, and that's where lawyers come in because we get to interpret what all that means. But I would suggest that your viewers first go to the public pages to see what the state and the county governments are saying about who's coming and who's going to stay closed. That would be the first thing. Then once you get into your county's website about what protocols the county is requiring of you, it may refer you back to the state with a lot of detail, or it may have specific things on its own. For instance, the Sonoma County website has a really great business checklist for mitigation measures. And I'm going to explain what that means. All right. For instance, today, the County of Napa received permission or authorization from the state to move into phase 2, which means that everybody in phase 1, it was just essential services. Now it's certain areas or sectors of like sports events, and not sports events, but sports locations, and certain types of restaurants and community places are opening back up with restrictions, so long as they can put in place what are called the mitigating measures. And it's really a term of art. A mitigating measure is, what have you done to mitigate the potential for injury of your employee and the public? Mm-hmm. And for instance, as I said before, Sonoma County has a really great checklist for mitigating measures. For instance, what have you done specifically to mitigate in-person contact? Can you have contactless sales? Can you order things and pay for it, credit card online, and then somebody comes and picks it up? There's touchless. There's things like that. So what have you done to mitigate that? How many people can you put remote, make work remote? The second is, how are you going to monitor the health of the individuals that come into your workplace, considering we have, the Fair Employment and Housing Act, which prevents disability discrimination. We've got HIPAA, privacy of, medical information, and we have, all kinds of the ADA and everything. So actually EEOC and the CDC and the Department of Labor and OSHA have come out with guidelines as to the kinds of things that you can do that will not, for this pandemic, violate one of the state or federal disability laws. You can take temperatures, You can interview people about their COVID symptoms. So there are all kinds of mitigating measures that you can do before you let someone into the building or to monitor the employee health issues. You have to have health and safety guidelines. For instance, you're going to want to educate all of your employees about, proper disposal of single-use masks or cleaning implements, things like that. So essentially it boils down to you have to have notices on the doors coming and going. You have to have notices posted inside the facility. You have to clearly identify where the cleaning supplies are and supply cleaning supplies. You have to then practice or hand washing is the next one. You have to have access to water and soap, or you have to have access to hand sanitizers with at least 70% isopropyl alcohol in them. And then you have to have, hand washing. And then finally, you have to have a mask protocol. What kind of masks do you have to prevent transmission of the droplets, the infamous droplets? And most counties are saying that homemade or folded bandanas are just fine. You need to take a look at your county page. But the rule of thumb is we have a lot of people out there that are refusing to wear masks inside. And according to the state and at least Napa County, you can be required to wear a mask anytime you are outside of your residence.
So Mary, that's come up in the news this last week where we're starting to see some altercations potentially between the customer and the business. So what are you advising, or what are your thoughts about the policies that the businesses should implement on that when the customer refuses to wear a mask?
I believe, well, first of all, this is public communication that's really at issue here. How do you market this issue? How do you not offend people who want to come in and spend money in your business without endangering the health of the public or an employee? And I have racked my brain as to how you can divide the people who are going to cause a big stink in the middle of your line at Costco or another place versus the people who are actually out there, protesting or may have other reasons why they can't wear a mask. Mm-hmm. But as an employer, you have to have a notice on your door that the facility is a mask only. And when and you have to have some kind of staging area to make sure that someone without a mask doesn't come in. Mm-hmm. And anytime you have confrontation, especially in something this heated, it could be a flashpoint for some kind of violence, which we have tragically seen already. And that is going to get worse and not better. We need to start thinking about security issues. We need to start thinking of staging the entry. If you've got a lot of people coming in at the same time, how you can stagger start times, how you can stage entries, like, certain divisions go in this door and certain divisions go in another door. The public only is through the front door. You can have, you can amp up your security if necessary, although sometimes I feel like amping up security just ratchets things up. But we're talking mitigating factors here. We're not talking about, it has to be something that's reasonably aimed at resolving the issue. So if you want to prevent confrontations or problems between an employee and a member of the public, then you might want to think about additional security. Camera lights, motion sensors, all of those things that prevent sabotage are probably going to see an increase as well.
Kind of makes me want to just stay on Zoom. It's so much like, we're work from home. We're good. We'll keep zooming it.
So Mary, I have a question. In real estate, when we want to show property, we have to have anyone entering a house sign a disclosure basically stating that they have not been sick and they haven't been around anyone that's been sick and experiencing any flu-like symptoms. Would it be advisable for businesses to have employees and clients do this?
Absolutely. And it's specifically addressed in both the Sonoma and the Napa County business mitigation issues that you can, and let me see if I can find this right now, just a moment. Employees are required to conduct self-assessments using COVID-19 applications or approved alternative methods. In other words, you can interview someone about their COVID symptoms and make a record of it. In fact, you need to make a record that you have done so for virtually everybody that's entering the building.
Wait, so we have to interview them and we have to make a record?
Employees. This is employees.
Okay.
You have to monitor. I'm an employment lawyer, so I'm telling you that you have to interview. You need to ask an employee whether or not they have experienced any COVID-like symptoms within the past 5 days. You know, and if they are, you have to be prepared to send them home into isolation.
And this is on an ongoing basis, not just the re-onloading of employees.
That's right. This is an everyday occurrence. You must ask. You must, perhaps the software application that allows the employee to punch yes, 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 or no, 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 you know, is an idea waiting to make billions. But it is actually something that is important. It's something that's relatively easy to set up on a regular network system too. So when you have someone, as they're taking your temperature with the heat temperature, the heat reader, you can also ask them to open their phone and enter the answers to the questions about COVID, which makes a contemporaneous record of the temperature and the recording and the response at the same time. And
when would that be important?
That would be important if someone inside the facility gets sick and tracks the contagion back, the infection point back to you. And they're going to look at both the government, state and federal government, and of course the plaintiff's lawyer are going to look at you to see whether or not you fully mitigated to the fullest extent possible. And I will tell you that they're going to look at these business mitigating factors published by the counties as a floor. So if you've got a way to schedule all your clients on a one-on-one basis and never have more than 2 people in the building at one time, they're going to expect you to do it. Okay? If you can get all your people remotely and you don't need to have someone in that facility, they're going to expect you to continue to do that, because that's a reasonable mitigating factor in light of the risk of harm.
So it sounds like, I mean, there's enough rules already put in place that anyone thinking about bringing employees back really needs to make sure they're crossing T's and dotting I's before they even start, because if they don't and someone does get sick, whether it's a client, whether it's an employee, that's a liability that can come back on the employer, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that's very important is that you understand your county's requirement for protocols and record keeping. You have to have notices on the doors. You have to have notices inside the building. This is about mask wear and sanitation, cleaning supplies. You have to have protocols for disinfection and sanitation. You have to have protocols for mask wear or face coverings, including the use of homemade or bandanas, and social distancing, the 6 feet apart, that sort of thing, and remote work, that sort of thing.
So I hear this, we need to check in with the state. I hear we need to check in with the county. Is there like a resource page that says, here's your checklist, here's everything you need to do? Because I'm thinking about all the, onesie, twosie employers. I think our team, we've got 4, 5 people, and the amount of workload that puts on the organization to then monitor that and the protocol we've got to get in place. It's a lot of work for full-time people doing another job on full-time.
Absolutely.
So what's the best way to navigate with that without just saying, you know what, let's just do Zoom for now? I mean, you look at a business like mine where we meet with clients. We used to meet with clients all the time because we're a financial planning firm, going over their portfolios. What I'm hearing out of you, I'm like, well, you really got to weigh the risk reward on this one now.
You do, it really is going to require. Let me just give you my experience and how I've been handling this with clients. I offer a consultation about whether or not, the size of their company and whether or not they need, what level they need to prepare for, what level of preparation must they have. And typically it's a return to work plan that comes out of that, which talks about, as I say, staggered hours and, staggering work shifts so that people can maximize their unemployment insurance benefits, how to treat and negotiate with your health care provider if people are coming back part-time, those kinds of things. What are the issues that you need to put in place? Not only all the protocols that are required for safety, but those that are just actually returning people to work and whether or not you want to keep them on Zoom forever. So not only are the notices and posts and the postings and the protocols all required, right, by virtually all counties that I've been able to see. The second is that in order to make a smooth transition where you don't violate someone's rights or you don't provide the maximum safety mitigating factors, it's really wise to prepare a full return to work plan. Even if it's only a couple of pages, just something that, sets your policy in place.
And Mary, what do you think employers should look at? Of course, I have my own thoughts, but in creating that return to work plan. I mean, of course, it may depend on the size, right? Like the 2-employee firm versus the Costco,
Right. And a return to work plan for someone with an employer and 2 subordinate employees could be as much as, we're going to have someone come in and clean the office once a morning. So-and-so is going to make sure the cleaning supplies are there. So-and-so is going to make sure that the masks are in place. We're they're going to trade off work assignments in terms of recording it doesn't have to be completely formal. It just has to be what is reasonably mitigating under the circumstances. And I think that you can modify downward, not the requirements, but the formality of the requirements if it's a smaller employer. If you've got a big employer, the documents are going to be your best friend. And so you really want to document whatever it is you're doing, and that's a return to work plan. At least evidences your intent of what you're going to do.
Well, and speaking of documents, let's talk about other documents that employers can look at doing right now, such as maybe handbooks and looking at policies. What are you thinking? You think this is the time to do that, or once things get restarted?
Well, if you haven't modified your handbook in the last 18 months, it's time to get it updated anyway, because we're almost unable to keep up with the changes to regulations and statutes happening in the employment world. And I can bet you a buck that once we're looking at COVID in our rearview mirror, there are going to be a lot of new statutes and a lot of new regulations about, the pandemic policy should go in your safety handbook or in a safety provision in your handbook that talks about the employer's rights and the employee's obligations and vice versa in the event of a shutdown due to COVID, or essential service provider definitions and things like that should all go in the handbook. And as I said, if you haven't had your handbook updated in the last year, you really need to have it done, because a handbook that isn't current is worse than no handbook.
And is this something you suggest clients just Google search on LegalZoom and get their own handbook, or have you seen benefit to having someone professional do that for them?
I prepare a lot of handbooks.
Mm-hmm.
I do probably 2 or 3 a month. And I will tell you that a small company should at least examine the opportunity that's available out there on the internet to see what kind of services are available. But you should never put in place, even if it's guaranteed by some expert on the net, you need to have it reviewed by an attorney that understands the compliance issues in your state and in your county. Very, very important for even those people who are going to take a Chamber of Commerce handbook, which is a great product, but it should be reviewed by an attorney to make sure it's customized to your size and your particular needs. You can obtain all kinds of information on the net. However, nothing takes the place of a document that's customized by someone who knows your business and is compliant with the laws in your state. And a handbook is the first thing your employees see about you other than the ad in the paper. And it's important that it sets the right tone and makes them feel comfortable that you're in compliance.
And this isn't like something that there's going to be anyone running around and playing police officer on. This is something, if someone gets sick, this is the first thing, if there's a lawsuit, that attorneys are going to start asking for, right? Like, hey, did you follow protocol or not? So it sounds like a really important risk mitigation measure, right?
This is all, you are talking about evidence in a potential lawsuit. And SDI should you become sick. So state disability insurance benefits should you become sick. And so there's a real conflict here between employers who want to bring people back and start their business up, but they know they're going to have to stagger. They know they're going to have to reduce hours because the revenue's not yet keeping up with the amount of payroll that would be to bring everybody back at full time at full wages. So one of the things that they are suggesting is to stagger people week by week. In other words, have everybody come back to work part-time, but they work a solid week. They take off they're furloughed for a week. They their schedule is 2 weeks every month, 2 weeks off every month. And that would mean that the employee would still be eligible for unemployment insurance benefits, same number of hours as a part-time employee stretched over 4 weeks, but then the employee would still be eligible for unemployment insurance benefits in the weeks that they were not working. Any amount of work that would bring that person up over, I think the level is $400 for the week, will make them ineligible for unemployment insurance benefits. It will have for that particular day or that particular week. There's a cap on the amount you can earn and still get unemployment insurance benefits. I didn't explain that very well, but the point is if you work a week on and a week off and a week on and a week off, you can still get the same amount of money as a part-time employee and still get unemployment insurance benefits for 2 weeks out of the month.
And I think the bigger point too is that with respect to the employer, there's such a benefit in strategizing with someone who's really up to date on these updates as they roll out here, instead of trying to figure it out themselves.
I am in complete agreement with that. I think that this is not something you can just go look up on the net. This is something that you have to read 4 or 5 very complex, brand new emergency laws. FICRA and emergency paid sick leave and the FEMLA extension laws and the new unemployment insurance benefits, guidelines from the EEOC. There are just so many resources out there that you have to consider that pay somebody else to tell you what it says.
Absolutely.
You know what, I tend to look at things right through the lens of the economy, right? And because that's my world. And I think about the productivity hit. Even after all, I mean, let's just say we all get told we can go back to work tomorrow. The productivity hit was staggering and not staggering and cutting hours and not cutting hours. And I mean, that's going to be a huge drag economically, even if we turn all the lights back on.
Absolutely.
See how this plays out.
Well, and then there's the conflict between not having furloughed people or laid people off, and then having the availability of the Paycheck Protection Act, but nobody to pay during the relevant time period. There's a whole nother problem with that area as well. So you have to use the money borrowed during a certain particular time period, and if you've got no employees there, you're trying to bring people back on. There's no revenue to generate because business is down, but you have to pay these people these wages. So it is a puzzlement as to how it's going to shake out.
Mary, thank you so much. Do you have any last thoughts that businesses need to know before we close for today? And hopefully you'll come back too.
Well, I'm sure I've probably generated more questions than answers. But the one thing that I would tell employees, and I know engagement is a overused word in the human resources and recruiting world, but in terms of the pandemic, now is the time to engage your employees on how safe they feel and what, if anything, they think that you should do to increase safety or mitigate potential risk for them. They want to know you're thinking about it, and goodwill is really worth it.
Ain't that the truth? Right? When nothing else works, goodwill will work for something, right?
Yes, goodwill is always a good thing to fight for and protect.
Absolutely. Mary, thank you for your time, for your talent and your interest in this and helping us to understand all these crazy new changes in our worlds and how we navigate the path forward. And it'll be an interesting one for us all, no doubt. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.